This one, so we'll cover this equipment first. First of all, everybody take one of these. It's a maintenance list of things to do. We'll get to those at the end of the talk and we'll review them. Looks like you got a riser in the corner.
Yeah.
So it's coming up on the floor back in the corner. Okay. Okay, medical vacuum. It's used for suction in all the surgeries and procedures in this hospital. Meaning if they're removing blood or fluids of any type, you're getting a suction from this piece of equipment right here. You're not going to suck the fluids all the way up in the plumbing and end up in the tank, because they're supposed to collect all the fluids in all the rooms, the ORs and procedure rooms, but we are supplying the vacuum that creates the suction to suck up in those bottles. Everything's got to come intake all the way over here, it comes around the back and into this tank. There's a 3-valve bypass, so if you ever get a leak, or the gauge needs to be replaced, or vacuum switch needs to be replaced, you can isolate this tank. And there's a manual drain on this tank. When we say manual drain, what happens when you open up a drain on a vacuum tank? It sucks it up. So it's going to suck up the atmosphere until it balances out to atmosphere. And this will clear out whatever vacuum is in here, and you can do your repairs or whatever you need to do. Let's take a look back here for a minute. I want to show you two things. Okay, here's our suction coming in, big pipe, flange. This valve is open, this is closed, this is the bypass. So it's sucking in here. We're drawing off of this and going into our vacuum pump. So we're sucking out the volume from the receiver up top and going to each of the vacuum pumps, all three stacked here. We've got a gauge here with an isolation valve, and what we've also got is some electronics hooked up here. We've got, this is just a digital transducer. This is where we pick up the vacuum, I shouldn't say pressure, but the vacuum level. It's in inches of mercury. This is where we get our information for our control panel. This bigger connector here, this is a vacuum switch, a mechanical vacuum switch. So if there's any electrical problems with the panel, there's a short, a blackout on the screen, this mechanical vacuum switch will function provided you have power to the panel. So if you have falling vacuum and it drops down to 15 or 16 inches of vacuum, this is going to activate and start the vacuum pumps. So we're giving you an insurance policy that something will come on as long as you have power. A mechanical switch will turn it on regardless of your controls. So it's a fallback just in case. Okay. Let's walk around to the other side. We can take a look at that. See this vacuum switch right here? This is measuring the vacuum in the building, or at least to this point. We're drawing all the plumbing, the vacuum is coming back through here to the receiver, but this is what we're measuring for the hospital. This is considered the vacuum switch source for the vacuum in the building. If it gets down to 15 inches, you get an alarm at the master alarm panel. What that means is that the hospital's not getting enough vacuum. If it's 15 inches here, down in the OR rooms, it's probably 13 or 12. And they're going to get an alarm on the floor if it gets down to 12 inches. So hopefully if we catch this at 15, the floor vacuum will probably still be at 13 or 14. And we're going to notify you guys to come up and find out why we only have 15 inches of vacuum here. Is something not running? Is something not open? Did somebody forget to open a valve? Come up and take a look.
What's the standard cut in?
We're going to get into that, but we're going to try to maintain about 19 to 21 inches. And each vacuum has, there's 3 vacuum switches, and they're all going to rotate, but they're all going to be, I'm going to say 18 to 21, 17 to 20, and 16 to 19. Roughly. We'll find out in a minute. We'll take a look where they've set it. So if it shouldn't get down to 15, and if it does, this switch is going to come on number 1, and this is going to go into alarm for whatever the reason is why we got down there. The vacuum comes into each inlet of the vacuum. You can see an intake filter there. And this is a shut-off valve here. Anytime you work on the vacuum prior to the inlet of the vacuum pump itself, it's considered a biohazard. Remember, we're sucking up blood and fluids out of bodies. They could have cancer, they could have leukemia, we really don't know. Anything along here to the intake of the vacuum pump, wear gloves, breathing protection, don't rub your eyes, no open wounds. It's not guaranteed you're going to get an infection, but the fact of the matter is, we don't know what's in it. The air's been contaminated by fluids in the body that the doctor's removing. So keep that in mind, safety-wise, protection-wise for yourself when you're working on the intake to the vacuum. Once it goes to the vacuum pump, it's going to get really hot. It's going to get up to 350, 375 degrees. And if there's any contaminants in this air, it's going to be cooked. It's going to be killed, any germs, possibilities. So anything on the discharge side, which goes out there, and this insulated discharge pipe right there, that could get very hot. That's a silencer up there. We're sucking in the vacuum into the vacuum pump and discharging it out and up and out of the building up on the roof. At that point, it's hot, it's cooling off, and as it cools off, if you had hot air and it cools off, what could you possibly collect that you'd want to drain on the bottom of this exhaust? The hot air is going to cool if it has moisture or any kind of liquid or gaseous elements. When it cools, it collects on the bottom, the very bottom of the pipeline. There's a valve there. You're going to want to drain that once a week, just to make sure it doesn't back up any fluids and get into the vacuum pump. Is that valve,
Is this one you're talking about right here?
No, the one on the bottom of the plumbing here.
Yeah, right here.
Does it have a pipe plug or something on the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, you should probably get rid of that.
Get rid of it, the red part?
Why make it difficult just to check for any contents? You can just put a coffee cup under there or anything that'll catch a fluid.
It's just a cap there.
Okay. Why don't you open it up to see if there's anything in there right now?
No.
Well, he hasn't been running too much, so.
Dry at the moment.
Okay, that's good. That's on the maintenance, by the way, to check that once a week. We'll go through that in a bit. Okay. Now these vacuum pumps are oilless, meaning there's no oil in them, so you're not going to have to change oil every 500 or 1,000 hours. They're oilless. As soon as I say that, here we have a drain plug with this oil sight glass right here. This oil is for the bearings of the pump only. It's not in the cavity where the vacuum is being produced. The oil is here to protect the bearings because it's an oilless unit, so we've got to have something that protects the bearings to give it long life. This oil you're going to change every 10,000 hours, which is probably every 8 to 9 years. So you just want to make sure you have some oil level in the sight glass. And if it gets very dark and black, like your car oil might get, and it's only been 6,000 hours, I would change it. That oil's going bad. It's like a liter of oil. Rather than wait the 10,000 hours, in which case it might turn the car and really get fixed and make it worse, might as well get rid of it. Your isolation is here. When you go to check your inlet filter, again, we've got a valve here to open up and vent vacuum. Get rid of it so you can pull the vacuum element out, this filter out. Tell you what.
And remember, glove up.
Glove up on the intake.
Yeah.
This is still a biohazard. There's a check valve right here at the throat of the inlet filter. So it doesn't suck back this way, you know, from the other vacuum pump. I'm going to shut this one right here. I'm going to isolate, let's get to the middle one. I'm going to isolate this right now. I turned it 90 degrees. We're going to check this filter right now.
You want me to turn the other two off?
Turn number 2 off.
Automatic right now.
Now let's turn it off.
Get you out.
Yeah, you may have to slide your finger across. There you go. Sweet. Number 2 is off. We're okay with the power disconnect. It's not going to run here with the controls unless the board's flat. Okay, so we've isolated it. We need to open it up and check the filters. So somebody take charge, grab a hold of it, and open her up. No, oh, we got a vent. Or suck in the atmosphere, equalize and vent all the suction. Hear that? Okay. Now we're going to take a look. It's okay with our bare hands. It hasn't been used in surgeries or for any procedures yet in the hospital. So we have these little clamps on it. We just got to pull them off. Doesn't look too bad in there. Pull the filter element out. Okay, rotate it around.
Both sides the same, right? This side and this side?
Well, it's
You don't see on
probably
this
either or. The thing I want to show you here is this is the intake here where it comes in. If you look at the filter, there's going to be a dark, dirty circle.
Yep.
And that's where it's been doing all its filtering right now. It looks like
So
it's right there. More so on the outside because it's sucking this side and going in. Did you see it on the outside? It looked like there was a dirty,
Right here,
spot
yeah,
there.
there's one
Yeah.
Right there, yeah.
Okay. Normally what let's rotate that so we don't put it back on that same side. You want to wipe this out with a dry rag. You can try to knock out any dirt, wipe that out. Do not use solvents, do not use water, do not use any liquids. We're sucking this into 350 degrees, 385, you know, whatever it's going to run at. So we don't want to give it anything
To cook.
yeah, to burn or exhaust out, create any flammable gases. Okay, let's get the clamshells back on. Okay, now close off and go open up the valve again. I'm going to pull it 90 degrees. That's good. See, he's doing it slowly. You never want to jerk the valve open. That's whether it's a pressure or a vacuum. Okay, let's go put it back on into service. It's being difficult. There it goes. All right.
You must have dry fingers.
Okay, so that's your filter maintenance. You got high temp probes. Remember we were saying these things run hot? Well, if it gets up to about 405 or 410, it's going to kick off. You're going to get a shut off. Indication on the alarm pin. Start frame. This is a claw vacuum. It kind of shows it here. There's two rotors in this one housing, which you can't really see. It's inside the black box. Two rotors. They're turning at high speed, 3,600 RPM. Two rotors in very tight formation, turning at 3,600 RPM. All we're really doing is creating a suction, or in reverse, creating a blower and blowing it up out of the roof. But we're getting our volume to pass through this cavity by sucking it out of the plumbing in the hospital through all the piping. And we're just blowing it up out of the roof. Just getting it out of the building, sucking it through the plumbing, the tank, all the way down. So all this is doing is a high-speed suction. Creates about 5 psi of pressure, but it'll create up to about 24 inches of action. The beauty about it is you don't have to change any oil, and the only filters you got to check is this. So the maintenance for you guys is going to be a lot less than if you had a lubricated rotary vane, which has been used for years and years and years.
Those are pain in the ass. Those are a lot of work.
And every single one of them, I don't care who makes it, they all leak oil over time, and then it's a mess. We're not
All
gonna
that
have
oil is bad oil too.
Yeah, it's a biohazard. Because remember we were talking about sucking up crap out of the body, and well, it ends up in the oil.
Yep. Gloves rip, gets on your forearms, and you're just like, ah, this is gross.
Been contaminated.
Yep. Ah, it's nasty.
Okay. We talked about the controls. Okay, now this is actually fairly simple. It's like your phone. You have your touchscreen on your phone. It's very similar to that. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can follow along myself. This is the vacuum level we're at right now, 24.4 inches. See these little gray squares? You get a graph. You can see what's going on. This is what happened in the last hour, 4 hours, 24 hours. You can see it was running anywhere between 20 and 25 inches. 6 days. It's running between 20 and 25, 26 inches. That's nice to see. If you had an alarm over the weekend or someone said you had low vacuum, you can come up here and see what you had, what vacuum level on a Monday from what happened over the weekend. I think yours has it over there on Parnassus too.
Yep. Convenient.
So it looks like this thing's basically from the graph where it's only running once a day. It looks like it's pulling once a day.
Well,
because it was 6
yeah,
days and
it's
there were
been
6
sitting.
drops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been
obviously
sitting.
because there's no use, right?
Yeah.
No. But I'm
But
just,
normally it's going to be like this. It's
Right,
going
exactly,
to be
yeah.
a ridge. And this is the number of units, which ones have been coming on. Hardly at all. So I guess we had it off for a while until yesterday or so. Okay. The
That
plus,
went from the CYA certification, when they came to certify everything, that's the only usage that they got after
Okay.
they were doing it. That's where the usage is coming from.
here's something we're going to look at here. Right here, the I, that's the info button, is your hours. You haven't got many hours on these things. So you're obviously not going to have much usage factor until you start using these things regularly. That's the air compressor. That's quiet. This will make more noise because this is oilless. An oilless makes more noise than a lubricated. We'll make some vacuum level here in a minute. Okay. That's the one that's going to run next, number 1 on the bottom. 2, 3. Okay. Here's what we have here. I'll come back to the red wrench. That's the case for you guys. These are the alarms we have. Lag alarm. You guys know what a lag alarm is? A backup pump alarm. This system has 3 vacuum pumps. 2 of them are designed to hold the facility for all their vacuum needs. If a third one has to come on, you get a lag alarm saying my reserve vacuum pump came on. It's not designed to come on. You should have more than enough vacuum. If that third one's running, why is that? You might have had a shutdown over here, or a high temp shutdown, or maybe you had a motor starter kick out, or a motor failed. Could be, well, we're not going to shut. These are just alarms. These aren't necessarily shutdowns. These are just going to alarm locally on the panel, and on the master alarm panel, it's going to say vacuum malfunction, which could mean you could have any one of these 3 here. Control circuit usually means this screen is blacked out, or this one, or maybe the main one's blacked out. Don't know why. Maybe it's a ground issue. Maybe it's electrical, a short. You still got power, but these things will have an alarm saying control circuit or something here. And you're going to get that up in the master alarm panels as a malfunction. The shutdown, so what it says here with this exclamation point, and the shutdown is going to say, well, it was on unit number 2 or unit number 1, one of these vacuum pumps, and we go to the shutdown indicator, the exclamation point. It's either a motor overload or discharge temp. It's either too hot or the motor kicked out. Maybe it's a loose wire, maybe it's a bad starter, maybe the motor's pulling a lot of amps because it's losing a bearing. We don't know, but you had a motor overload for some reason. Those are only 2 shutdowns. And this will come on as a shutdown, but it'll say which vacuum pump had a shutdown. If it shut down on discharge temp, as in a high temp, it got too hot, but it cooled off, it will run again, but this alarm's going to stay here until you reset it. Okay, so you have a latch-on light that says I shut down for high temp, high discharge, but it won't go away unless you check the unit and reset the screen. I'll show you how to reset in a minute. You'll do that with
those
maintenance.
alarms will turn red. I mean, the dot,
Yeah,
the,
you'll have-
the green will be red if it's alarmed.
In the main
This is
screen,
ambient,
yes.
but on, yeah, this will be lit up red.
Right, but I'm saying right now, if we're to identify what motor and what alarm, will those green turn to red, the green dots, like right here?
Well, yes.
Yeah, like say it was the lag alarm or the control circuit was failed. That would be red to identify it
Red,
being red.
identify which one, and this will be red,
Okay.
and one of these will be red. Even though it may be running on the main screen,
Right.
maybe number 2 or number 1 is running, but it had a high temp, this is still red. And you could ask yourself, is there a problem?
It looks similar to our
It's
old
running.
system.
Well, there was a high temp problem. You better check the unit out, maybe isolate it, and then see what there's blockage or a fan failed or maybe the motor
Bad sensor.
failed. Something. Look for a problem. Okay. So these are the alarms. These are the shutdowns, and the shutdowns overload at high temp. It will give you an alarm for the high temp, and then if it shuts down, then it's going to stay here, shut down. Okay, moving on. Settings. Okay. Min and max, 20 to 24. This is what the lead vacuum pump's going to run, between 20 and 24. The lead vacuum pump could be this one, or this one. They're going to rotate. Every time one runs for, well, it gets up to 24 inches of vacuum, it'll time out and shut off. It does have a minimum run time. We don't want starting up a vacuum pump every 2 minutes. So it's going to run up to 15 minutes. That's a minimum run time. So you don't have more than 4 starts.
Do we know what the minimum run time is?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's on the wiring diagram. I don't know if you've got those. The wiring diagram will tell you what the minimum run time is.
It might be in the manual.
If it
Well, it
doesn't,
says 18 right there, right?
okay.
No, that's the.
This is the lead.
pressure.
The lead vacuum is running 20 to 24 inches. The second vacuum pump is going to run somewhere between.
Okay.
And then Mike, this is the last one to come on at 16 to 19. So the middle vacuum is going to be set for, I'm going to guess, say 17 to 21, or it could be 18 to 22. Somewhere in the middle. The wiring diagram probably has that on there. If it's in here, do you think, Tom, the wiring diagram?
Yeah, and we have every piece of paper that we grabbed out of here that's not in there. So
Okay.
we'll get that information to you.
We can shut this off and open.
Pardon me?
We can shut this off and open it.
Well, as
So
long as
are
we
we
maintain,
doing-
as long as we maintain vacuum.
Well, we haven't really gone anywhere. I'm just going to open it up and then we'll shut it back down. I just want to look.
Okay.
All right, let's shut these off. 'Cause it would answer some questions. Oops, need a screwdriver. There you go. Now this is live in here, and we do have some materials. And looky there. I don't know, we want to give this away yet, or the head guy?
I think we should leave them in there.
All right.
That way whoever needs it at the time they do it, they know where it's at. Right, David? I mean,
Yep.
it's your call. And we get another one for you.
We don't have a wiring diagram in here, though. You probably have it somewhere.
Yes, go ahead.
This is an install diagram, but no wiring diagram. All right.
From the old O2?
Just real quick, disconnects, starters,
Okay, copy
starter
that.
overload. These
We'll
are the
take a look.
reset buttons, the red ones.
Thank you.
We either got O2
Power
changeover or some sort of
converters,
alarm on the.
all the controls in the panel operate on 24 volt. So we take it in at 480,
I go take it.
convert it to 24 volt, and we run all our major boards for all our information on our circuitry.
Richard,
Main power in.
you can ask the front desk which alarm is alarming.
Okay, I go.
Okay.
All right, let's get this back out. Vacuum's still good. All right. All right. You see what we were doing here? We like to slide it because it's, I don't know where the touch spot is on this thing, so you want to slide your finger on it. There we go. Everything's back up and running.
Is that green LED just the board indicator?
Just says you got power.
Indicator?
One thing you might have noticed, is that one gone black over there?
Yep.
Yeah, it's got a motion sensor on it.
That's exactly right. That's what this is. This white circle. You walk in front of it, it'll come back on. If no one's up here, why burn up the screen with light? It eventually will get fuzzy or brown or fade. So we shut it off after, I think it's 2 minutes. In fact, just look at the settings again. Okay, vacuum. You'll see your model, serial number. It's also on the side, I believe. Yeah, right there. The ship date. The audible. Okay, now this is the horn. Right now, it's set up for never to repeat. So if you get an alarm on this panel and you go up and silence it, that's it. It's not going to come on again. But you could set it up to reactivate after 24 hours or 8 hours or whatever you want. Right now it's not going to come back on, and we'll hold this for a second here. We'll find out the noise. That's the alarm, and we can make it louder or quieter just by turning off the front face. We'll try it one more time.
I see.
Okay. Date and time. Is that about right? 12:40? Is that what we got?
12:46.
So it's 6 minutes slow. Okay, let's reset this. Oh, password.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
Did you read the book? Or is it,
No, it's from the,
He remembers it
the
from the
O2.
other panel.
The O2. The O2 panel.
Okay. Well, he's right. 1, make sure you see an asterisk. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to hit the arrow. Now I have arrow indicators. I can move this up. So we said it was 46, 47 now?
Well, I got 45.
Yeah. 46 is good.
All right, 40. We go with 46. Better be a little fast and a little slow. But once you change that, you got to go back to the home screen and now go back to settings and go to date and time and hit set. Now that same code is going to apply every time we do maintenance. You're going to get maintenance alerts, and that's how you're going to reset it. It's available in English, Spanish. Actually, it's in about 6 different languages. It's not all programmed in this one, but there are other ones we could program it with. Now these are network access. We have an Ethernet connection in the panel. If you want to tie it into the hospital system, just by tying it in with a Cat5 cable like you would on your PC at home.
Now is it tied in, David?
You can tie it into the
I don't
system.
know if it's on EMS or not.
Then if you get an alarm, you go to any computer in the hospital, punch in the IP address. What you guys have, Google or Yahoo or whatever you use for your server, and just punch in your IP address, you're going to get all the information that's right on this panel. So if you're the chief engineer, you happen to be on the first floor and someone says up on the roof, we got this, you can just go to the nearest
Do we have a control panel like the O2 panel?
computer, punch this in through the server, whoever you're using, and get this information. This can also be accessed to a chief who's at home. You know, they got to call the chief on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock. He's not going to want to come in, but he can dial it up on his computer and see what's going on in this thing. And so it's not that big a deal. We just need to change out whatever. So anyway, something you might want to consider. These are all different addresses. MAC. Right now it's set up in temperatures of Fahrenheit and inches of mercury. This is just some general stuff.
Okay.
The backlight timer is 1 minute. If you don't have any motion, it's going to kick off. 3 units installed. Runtime, there you go, runtime max 15 minutes. That also means, normally if it runs, the lead run 20 to 24, hits 24, it's going to kick off after 15 minutes. If it happens to run 22, 23, never gets to 24, it'll still kick off and switch to the next one. Just because you don't want to have one that can run for 3, 4, 5 hours just because it never hit the 24-inch mark. That's my point.
And I believe I was reading in the manual that, if I understand correctly, all these, you have a rotating lead lag. It goes by the hours, and after so many hours of motor running, that one will become like the lag, and then the other two will take over.
Right.
So that pretty much our run times will always stay within a few hours.
It's going to attempt to try to get there all the time.
Right.
Maybe not every week, but there gets to be a discrepancy. Too many hours, it'll start kicking that one in more often than the other ones. Okay, those are the settings. One thing we didn't look at is history. We've got 22 pages of alarm history here. And this might be good for you, Dave. Janko wants to know how soon you take care of problems. You can print this up. Again, you need to tie it in though with the internet and get the history here. Or if you have an alarm on a Saturday morning, the chief comes in, hey, how come this hasn't been fixed? Somebody says, well, it just went off last night. Come over here and say, no, it did. It went off on Saturday morning at 9:30. Yeah, no longer can you lie and get away with it. It's going to be here. So it's just nice to see if you had some alarms, you were gone for 3 days, you wonder what was going on, you can find out. You can scroll down to the very first page and down to the last page. 3816.
Your power reset, right?
What's that?
Your power reset's the last one.
Very first
When you
one?
shut it off.
Oh yeah, was that the last thing up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, power reset. 1238 56.
Yep, so when someone said they did the maintenance on the unit, come up, take a look, see if the unit was even turned on.
Right.
A lot of ways.
These are all alarm resets here.
Trust me, I've either done it or seen it.
Well, let's see if it shows the maintenance. Okay, now, we've done all these icons already. This is your silence, by the way. If you get an alarm, this is your silencer.
Okay.
The red is for maintenance. First of all, here's your ambient temperature. If you have an alarm for too hot, and the too hot alarm is at 105. Battery manufacturer and motor manufacturer both recommend you operate this equipment at 105 degrees or less. If it gets to 106, you're going to get an ambient alarm. It just means it's an alarm, doesn't mean there's a shutdown or a failure, but it's too hot here.
Right.
We had that issue at UC. It was a housing unit. Two. 12 3 times.
There you go.
Hit the arrow. There you go. Oh no, sorry, you hit the 9 by accident. That's not your fault, because that's common.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. No, because you know how it is on your phone. If you're trying to text a message, you have to hit the bottom of the letter sometimes, you know. The top, it looks like you're right on the arrow, but a lot of times that's the bottom of it.
Does that have a calibration anywhere in the setup?
Not really. No. The problem is we shipped it from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's kind of jumping like this the whole way. And
They're not all iPads,
what's that?
They're not all iPad
No, they're not
touchscreens.
built with that kind of, I guess, protection. But okay, so that's the reset on that, and we'll clear out of this. But we still have maintenance down here. There's red, number 1, number 2, number 3. So what are they talking about? They just want you to check the oil level. Should have checked it 42 days ago. Let's just make sure all our oil's on the center on the cyclist.
Sound good?
All good? Okay, now look, it says every 7 days. So it's going to tell you, I need to do that every 7 days. It'll come up with your red wrench on the screen.
It's going to take some time to go through this every day and when we do it.
Well,
Once a week.
Yeah, what?
to
Yeah,
do
yes.
this.
Yeah, it's going to be part of the weekly rounds. There'll be different daily, weekly, and monthly rounds.
Cool.
When we switch equipment over.
So at least it might be able to you think this one's fine, but at least if they had something that's
Oh,
like you got.
yes, it should have been done
Yeah,
42 days
it's been
ago.
going on for a while.
Yeah, you missed it.
Yeah.
There's only 2.5 hours on these things, so.
Oh, okay, so that means it's missed days.
So it counts for you. Right, so it's already reset. I checked the receiver, it wants you to do that once a day, so it's going to get the red wrench once a day. Check your oil level. Here's, it says here, unit basic kit, you need to replace some stuff, basically once a year. Hit the unit basic kit. Oops, I hit the surface. Check oil. So I did it. All right. Unit basic kit. Here it is right here. Here's the part number. Unit basic kit, standard. Filter element 1 per unit.
So those are the filters
Yeah,
that we
so
checked earlier.
you need to order three basic
of those.
kits. There's your part number, and here's the phone number.
Sweet.
Get them on order.
That's convenient.
Yeah, well, they're both free, toll free.
Oh, okay.
We don't soak them in kerosene and dry them out.
Actually,
just buy them, all
make
right?
sure they're warm. Actually, this one you got to pay. It's $803. There's your freebie. 888. You can also order them from Carson. He's one of our dealers. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible for you guys.
Yeah, we don't have to like
Can
look
you come
up
out
part
and do this
numbers
for me?
and make it even easier.
Now you can do it.
That'll be out of a job.
Does the drone drop the filters off on the
Right.
Amazon.
Yeah. We got to give you the GPS coordinates, right, for the delivery.
You guys have a heliport here somewhere? You can just
Hell
drop
yeah,
in.
right here.
Okay, so that's basically it. And there's a unit of oil. Look, you got almost 10,000 hours before you buy that replacement oil. And
Unless
if you
it gets
have
that
to, that's the kit you buy. Okay. So let's look at, there's your ambient stuff too, so I can see how hot it's been. Oops, go back home screen. Okay, let's look at the maintenance list I gave you. Make sure we're covered on that, and we'll move on to the air.
I dropped my papers.
I handed it all out, so you each have one.
Okay.
Okay, what's the first thing on the list?
Exhaust strip leg.
Check the drip leg. See if you got any condensate. How often does it say to do it?
Daily.
Yeah, it's up to you. Probably more like once a week. Once a week? You don't want it to back up into the bottom vacuum discharge, because the water will float into the vacuum pump. But also, when you go to drain it, bring like a styrofoam coffee cup or something just to catch whatever's there. I mean, you can dump it right there, but why?
Yeah,
Just
we're
pick it
not
up
going to do that.
and dump it down the drain. It's not a biohazard because it's already been cooked. So it should be just some condensate and just throw it down the drain, wherever the local drain is around here on this.
We don't know
No,
yet.
Tom didn't give us any drains.
Oh, no
Right,
drain.
one drain
per room.
There's a drain.
Stand Steve drains
Where?
are right back there.
What can I do in front?
Oh yeah.
There's one over there.
Okay.
We get all the stuff out of here, we'll see it.
Yeah.
What's next on the list? We've already checked. How often does it say?
Check monthly.
Monthly. It's up to you. These are brand new. You might want to rotate, the dirty circle, once a month. This thing's going to tell you to check them. Well, it would if it comes up that you didn't clear it. Well, once a year they want you to buy it. I don't think it's going to tell you about the filters.
Yeah, we'll have to spin them once a month.
Yeah, just take a look at
And then
them.
once a year replace them. One more.
Okay, what's next?
VSD control panel filter.
Okay, we don't have VSD.
These aren't VSD, right?
Move on.
Oil level, check weekly.
And that gives you a maintenance check on that, although it doesn't call it up now. I think a filter maintenance is going to come up every 3 months or 6 months monthly.
Monthly.
We'll see. Okay, what else?
Oil, 10,000 hours.
Okay,
So
that's,
we'll see
that's
that.
6, 7 years down the road, whatever it takes you to get to 10,000.
Motor bearings. What horsepower are motors?
50?
Look at the model number. 7.5.
7.5.
We have 3 7.5s.
Where are you seeing that?
Okay,
knows the
well,
model number.
No, I understand, but
it's a vacuum.
uh-huh.
The H means oilless claw for some reason. S means it's single standard skid, 7 horsepower, 7.5 horsepower. Triplex for the T, 240-gallon tank, vertical. Triplex control panel. C means 460 volt. D, I think, is just the D version, or 4th version of this. Do you grease your motor bearings? I don't know if these need to. Can you see if there's any Zerk fittings on these motors? I think these might be seal bearings. See any fittings on the front or back, bottom or top?
No.
The smaller ones, this is right about the middle, don't have a fitting for it.
Maybe look on the left side over here. I don't think we do, but look and see if there's one right in here somewhere.
No.
Yeah, no, these are sealed.
All right, nothing there. We do have them on the air motors. See that fitting there? On the end of the motor, there's a little Zerk fitting there. You can squeeze in some grease.
No sealed bearings, huh?
Oh, sorry. Not on the air.
Well, V-belt drive. Wow. They have a fan cool exhaust on them. I think that's about it on our list. We talked about greasing the vacuum bearings besides breathing. Now that being said, there's 2 things that can get sucked into the airstream that makes it very hard to breathe. One is water. We're going to create that in here, making the air. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what else can we suck in here that can be harmful to anybody breathing?
Carbon dioxide.
Monoxide, carbon monoxide. We expel carbon dioxide in our breath, and that's okay. But if you break that, you're going to die eventually. But carbon monoxide will kill you quickly. And where does it come from? Engine exhaust. Whether it's diesel, car engine, anytime a burning fossil fuel car or truck emits a poisonous gas, you wouldn't put your mouth on an exhaust pipe. That people commit suicide by doing stuff like that or filling the car up with carbon monoxide. So we're going to measure that. Right now it says 3 parts per million, and I doubt it's even that much. What will happen, okay, we'll come back. But the dew point's really good. Minus 19 Celsius, that's about 10 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very dry. Remember, it's 35 degrees Fahrenheit, it goes into alarm, or plus 2 Celsius, which is the same as 35 degrees Fahrenheit.
Can we change that to F at the settings or no?
We can.
You can.
Let's give it a shot. Sometimes I got to reprogram, but let's just see if we can just reset and see what we get. So we're going to monitor carbon monoxide because the only place we're going to get is from that side. And we monitor the air for breathing at the very end of the skid before we put it in the pipe. We want to go through the whole dryer filters scenario so that we test the final product before it goes to the hospital. That's where we check for dew point, that's where we check for carbon monoxide. I suppose we can go take a look at the sensors right now. Come over here.
So these are the filters?
Okay, now we're sucking the air in from outside. We're getting a fresh source. By code, we got to get air from outside the building, free from exhaust as best we can, away from any vents or suction areas for boilers exhausting or any kind of HVAC.
Which is this pipe right here, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
the
intake.
supply.
That's sucking in the air
Looks like it's picking it up from all the way on the other side of the building over there, away from the vacuum.
And you
exhaust.
could pick up some parts per million of carbon monoxide. It's not uncommon. Normally, as you're using the air throughout the day, it's going to be going up and down. It's going to be 0, might 1 or point, 1 part, 2 parts down to 0, 1 part, 2 point. It's going to be like that throughout the day. Right now, it's holding straight on at 3 because we're not using anything. There's no flow. So that's kind of like just trapped air, and it keeps reading the same thing over and over and over again. So if we run this thing, which we will, that should clear out and back to 0. Normally in San Francisco, your smog's pretty good unless it's a hot day with no wind. So you're going to have 0 most of the time. The hot, summer, smoggy day, maybe you might get 2, 3 to 4 parts per million. It alarms at 10 parts per million. So you shouldn't have a problem with that. If you're reading 10 parts per million or more, it could be your dew point sensor is not working well.
Okay.
That's where that's housing. This is where we're taking our samples from. This is the dew point sensor. Our air is being dried, filtered, and discharged here. So we're sampling it right here in this block. This one's, let's see, it goes up to here, yeah. Okay, this will shut off to the CO. This little valve here will shut it off to the CO monitor feed. This dew point feed, this might be the combined. It's taking a dew point reading here. It's got a check valve here. So this is where we're taking our samples and we're measuring it here at the control panel. This side is open, the valve is open, so we're on this dryer. This one's doing all the drying. What's it say? We got some pressure in there. What's it say, about 100 pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this for a minute because we're here. We're making the air in the compressors and we're pumping it into the tank. When we pump up the air from outside up to 110 psi, 2 things happen. It gets really hot. You just heat of compression. The scrolls are just in this one round cavity. You see this big round cavity? That's a belt guard on that side, but it's a circular,
It's right here, right?
circular device, and that's the discharge right there in the center.
Oh, wow.
Here's your intake. Your intake on either side of the scroll, and it's gonna. Look at it like it's like a big spiral. Turns in high-speed spiral, so it just compresses it down in centrifugal force out the center at about 110 psi. They got a high temp probe right there. So we're sucking it in on the top and bottom, discharging it down the center, and then where's it flow? Where's it flow to? Should flow over to the cooler. It's going to flow over to the black box on the
Right here?
Yeah, there it is. Ready?
This
Oh, there we
nice
go.
radiated.
I see now what's going on.
Yeah,
It's like a regular car radiator.
so it's sucking it in at top and